Here we go. Welcome to Genessis Models 21st live session. If you remember, in the last live session we were working on our Mig-15 just in. We did all the deckling. Tonight we're going to be nicely moving along with some weathering. Yeah, I know it's we've started a little bit earlier. Normally it's 6 o'clock every Friday. I've got to go out afterwards, so I'm starting a little bit earlier just this night. As always, get on the chat, let me know whatever questions, answers, whatever you're working on, shout outs, whatever. Just post them and I will get around somewhere in the show, answer them, maybe even get out some dummy stuff and kind of teach you through something. Doesn't have to be anything necessarily to do with the Mig-15 or weathering, whatever you want to ask. Also, just to let you know sort of what's going on, we have this month's competition for March, which was for this little beauty just here. Get that to focus. There we go. It is the Marauder B26B by Airfix 1/72 scale. That's this month's competition. As always, to be in it to win it, go Genesis Models website. We have a forum, and in the forum we have March 2019's competition. And in there, just make any sort of comment, and that just simply gets you entered, and I will announce this beginning of April who is the winner. So get in on that. We've got group builds over there and everything, as well as all the other step-by-step video builds. So let's jump into some weathering with this lovely little beauty here. So let's just play cameraman quickly for a second. There we go. Bring you around. Right then, now with this weathering, what we sort of want to keep in mind is we've done deckling, we've put a gloss coat on top, we've left it overnight to dry, so the gloss coat's nicely cured, gone rock hard, and this means that we can come along, we can use stuff like enamel based weathering, and it should protect our decals, should protect our paintwork. We shouldn't really get any sort of reactions. So what we're going to do is I've just kind of eyeballed it and sort of picked out our panel line wash by Ammo Mig-15. This is the 1601. These panel washes are rather cool. It's enamel based. It's just thin, just to the right amount, so as it's good for doing pin washes, as they say. Loads and loads of different colors you can get in this one. Now the thing is, I don't just go off and just kind of go, that color looks like it'll be good for weathering. What I do like to do is find a spot on the model. It doesn't matter where really, but underneath's normally a good one. Also give this a good shake and just sort of test it first. The thing is with this stuff, it cleans up very easily, so if you make a mistake you can wipe it away, and if you don't like the colour. And not only that, if the colour's not quite what you're after, it's not a big deal, because actually you're only doing a little bit in one area, and actually that might just add a bit of extra flavour. So I'm just getting a nice pointy yet small sort of paintbrush here, and I'm just going to have a dip in here, just checking any questions. Nothing at the moment, so we're just going to dip this in here. And the whole point of the panel line wash is when we sort of like touch, this is why we call it a pin wash, is with just the tip of the paintbrush we should be able to just touch the tip onto a panel line. We might need a little bit more on our paintbrush, right, and it should flow to a degree. Now you don't know if you've just seen that, but there was a bit of a nice flow there. Now you don't have to be like perfect and go off and not get any mistakes or anything like that, right? If you go over, that is absolutely fine. If you sort of accidentally kind of, I've touched it there, it's no big deal really. right? Because there is a second stage to this, and that second stage will do a nice cleanup. So I don't know how well you can sort of see that, but all I've been doing is just touching it very, very lightly, and then the flow, the capillary action, just gets it to nicely flow. Right, I'm not actually like running my paintbrush along and painting it like so. Right, it's just, you just touch it and it flows. It just cuts down on the amount of mess, although I like a little bit of mess because it does work, which I'll show you later. I'm just touching, and that's sort of bringing it. Now that colour, I'm to be totally honest with you, I'm kind of thinking it's not really sort of bringing our sort of detail to the foreground enough. So I'm actually going to change the colour. This is why I say it's always good just to have a little play. I do have midnight black here, but I'm kind of like, that's maybe going to be a little bit too strong. Right, so potentially a bit of playing around. I do have a deep grey just here. I'm trying to go for something a little bit grey because that sort of complements like the natural metal finish nicely. So I'm just giving this a shake, and I'll read some questions maybe. Got one from Mr. Silencer asking how long have I been building professionally. Professionally, I would say about 8 years ago. This all started with just building models on commission, and then sort of like videos come into it, because what I'd like to do is I like to, when I was building you know, models like this for commission, I'd like to send photos and videos showing the customer, you know, what their progress is with the model, and if they wanted to make any changes, that kind of stuff. But as sort of time went by, I'd post these videos on YouTube. People would go, how do you do that? And then I'd show them how to do that. And, you know, things sort of built up from there. But yeah, that was about 8 years ago. So I'm trying a darker grey here and seeing how this colour turns out. So I'm just going to do the whole pin wash, and actually immediately I can sort of see that, you know, that brings it out nicely. It's not quite a black, it's a nice dark grey. I'm liking that a lot better now. You can probably see that better on camera as well. And as you can see, all I'm doing is just touching it, and you can almost see as well a little blob where I've just touched it. That's absolutely fine, and then it just flows absolutely lovely. Right, we do have recessed rivets. With these recessed rivets, it's a bit pointless running along and sort of, you know, trying to dab and pin wash these tiny little individual rivets. So I'll just kind of, not with a fully loaded paintbrush, but a lightly loaded paintbrush, I just run along these little rivets that are on here, just like this. There's a bunch of rivets along here. Just give it a bit of a run over, and because my brush isn't fully loaded, it's not leaving a massive amount of mess. Right, as I say, I want some mess for the next stage, but really you don't want masses of just plastering it all over, because it just means you've got to clean up more later. Right, I'm just going to sort of do this wing, and then we can leave that to dry, because it'll take me, you know, a bit of time to go all around the model, and we are live, so I don't want to bore you with me just going all the way around this model. I just want to do a couple of these, this wing just here. And that's the cool thing about using the ammo stuff. As I say, it's been formulated to the right thinness, so it just flows. Alright, just touch it and it'll flow into those nooks and crannies. I mean, interestingly, I mean, it is, you know, just enamel paint. I mean, there's not much special about it. So, I mean, if you didn't want to go out and buy this stuff, you could just buy any sort of enamel paints and just thin it down to the right consistency if you don't mind doing that, and you can sort of have your own paints that way. But we do like to just have everything nicely done and dusted for us, and we just use it, to be fair. I know I do. I'm just getting there now. Now with this, because it's enamels, you could do this sort of the same technique with acrylic based paints, but you just don't have that working time, because enamels take a long time to dry, which, you know, if you ever did this kind of modeling, you know, maybe a decade or two ago, it all used to be like enamel based paints, and that's what we all sort of used to use. And if you remember, you'd paint that on, and you'd need to leave it for like 4 hours to dry. Right, which is kind of one of the reasons why we've gone to acrylics. But for the weathering aspect, it just makes this process a lot sort of easier, because it takes such a long time to dry. We can play with these weathering products, which I'll show you what I mean about playing around with it in a sec. Right, I think we've probably done enough to this wing now. Well, hold on, got a nice big, oh, just get a cotton wool bud and clean this up a bit. Right, see, I've made a mistake, but I'm not worried, because, as I say, because we've protected it with gloss coats and everything, I know it's not going to like eat into the paint, and actually it's just going to add that bit of flavour later on. Right, so maybe a little bit just more here. I mean, if you really want to make sure you get all the recessed panel lines and stuff, you can sort of come along, oops, maybe later and sort of do a second coat. But there we go, that should do for now. As you could see, you know, lots of little pins going on there, and that's sort of filled them in. But what we're going to need to do now is you're going to need to just leave this to dry. We don't want it to dry, you know, sort of come back to it tomorrow, because it would really sort of start to dry and cure and sort of be a little bit harder to sort of play with. So maybe 20-30 minutes, it dries it enough so that we can sort of play with it. Right, it's almost like playing around with oils in a sense, if you've ever played with oils, because they don't dry so quickly and they stay wet for a long time. You can sort of fade and feather and stub down and do all sorts of cool stuff with it, and that's what's cool about this. So I need to leave that to dry for a bit, so we'll move on to something else for now. I'll just quickly check any questions you may have. Okay, we've got a question a bit about the old gloss thing. A question that does keep on cropping up, so I'll just quickly go over it again. What we have here, believe it or not, is floor cleaner. This is by Pledge. It's a multi-surface wax floor cleaner. And it's just, I know it just sounds kind of weird, but it really does turn into a really nice gloss coat, and it's cheap. You get a lot for your money. It's really cool for putting gloss coats down. There is another one, if you wanted to buy an actual model based one, which is Alclad's 2 lacquers, Aqua Gloss. They're water based, they're already thin to the right consistency. Spray it on, you know, 5-10 minutes later it's basically dry and it locks in the model. And yeah, I do always, you always want to basically spray your model, put a gloss coat on top of that, then decal your model, put a gloss coat on top of that. You just sandwich everything in and it just saves you work. So whatever you do on top isn't really going to affect it. What else we got? Just some nice comments. Thanks for you guys. You know, I mean, a few of you saying how you like the channel. I'm glad you like the channel. I mean, you know, I kind of do this for you guys and whatnot, which you know, it's fun for me and teaching you guys. So you know, I'm happy with that. Yeah, next thing we're going to move along with is we've got wheel well doors. I mean, it's sort of, you can use the same sort of products, but maybe you might want to sort of bring out this detail a little bit more, maybe, or sort of show it being a little bit grubbier or something. So this is where we could maybe go off and use, say, a black. Right, let's just give it a quick shake. Right, and with this, because we've got sort of more detail in one area, we might want to sort of make it look a bit more grubbier than everywhere else. We could actually just paint this all on, just not like a pin wash where you sort of pin it, but actually with this one, I'm kind of thinking we just slather it all over like a wash. Right, maybe not too pulled up, so I'm just I was just off camera, I was just getting a kitchen paper towel and I'll just wipe my brush on there and it'll just suck up whatever's on here. I will play around with this as well later on, just clean it up because it is looking a little uneven and maybe a little bit too dirty, but we'll play around with that like we're gonna everything else. That's just something else you may wanna do. Ron Starr, sounds like you've just brought the Tamiya Spitfire kit, so congratulations on that. I think I remember you guys were asking for advice about a good starter kit, and I always recommend the 1/48 scale Spitfire. Absolutely cracker to sort of get started with. Unless you mean the 1/32 scale, in that case you've got a cracking model there to work on. Next up we have, oh well done, sorry, another question. Lee Mitchell, what matte varnish works as well as gloss? Matte varnishes, I mean, I have used loads and loads of different matte varnishes in the past, and I did find this stuff, and this is what I settled on after using loads and loads of different ones, different models. Some of them were terrible, some of them were good, but in the end I really do like Winsor & Newton's matte UV varnish. This stuff's just really great. It dries pretty quick, maybe a little bit tacky for 20 minutes slightly, but it's just, it doesn't fade in color or anything like that. It doesn't whiten it. It just nicely gives a good matte coat. You can thin it down with homebrew thinners, and you know what, it's got this UV varnish protection on it, which, you know, sounds good. I mean, if it works, it works. I've not had any problems with like any sort of UV yellowing of models, so doesn't seem too bad. Next up, I'm gonna have to get out. It's just over here. I've got another shelf full of paints over there. For this, I like to use stuff like rubber tire paint. It's a nice colour. This one's by AK. Again, let's give this a good shake. Got a question here from Philip about priming models. Priming models. Now, I like to use. We do have Vallejo. They have their surface primers. Normally, it's like an acrylic-based polyurethane primer, right? Just like so. There's other primers. I know AK and Ammo do their kind of primers as well, which is polymer based. Yeah, and then you've got Ammo as well. Basically the same stuff. It's a bit of a discussion, really. I mean, you can get away with just using any old paint as a primer, maybe just some grey paint or something like that. But really, you know, these polyurethanes, they do leave the surface feeling really, really nice, nice and smooth. Admittedly, they do dry very, very quickly. So when you first have the bottle, it's nice, but then over time it sort of gets bitty and breaks up at the bottom, and then you sort of have to sort of almost filter the paint a bit to stop all these bits kind of getting into your airbrush and then splatting on the model. Can be a bit of a pain, so it's probably not a good idea to buy these big sort of, what is this, 200 mils ones. I mean, these sizes aren't too bad because, you know, you'll use them up quicker before they start to get all bitty and stuff. That's the problem with like polyurethane, but it does leave the surface so nice and smooth, and it prepares the model for all the spraying you're going to do. Another thing is, you did ask, do you need to wash them? I know back in the day, you know, they'd have these mold release agents that kind of left an oily surface on the kit, so you would have to wash them in soapy water. But you know, I don't really do it these days. I mean, they do sort of clean them these days nicely, and you don't technically have to. I mean, you can if you want. There's no harm in doing it. Just don't have the water too hot that it melts the plastic. But yeah, I don't do that, and I always kind of use some sort of polyurethane or something. And also, I mean, with primers as well, it's not just the fact of putting a primer down, but what color you put down. Grey's always been sort of that one color that everyone sort of goes for. It's a nice color to do all sorts on. But if you remember, when we were spraying this Mig-15 here, we actually primed it black, right? Because black is a great color to have underneath natural metal finishes. It brings your natural metal finishes out a lot more and a lot more nicer. So there's things like that. Maybe doing stuff like red. You could prime it yellow first, which sort of brings out the red a bit more, sort of better in your face. So, you know, stuff like that. But I mean, you can get away, as I say, with just coming along and just getting any old pot out and just spraying that down as a primer. It's kind of up to you, but I always use primers these days. Okay, oh, really getting some questions coming in. Phil's on about Alfred's primer, spray primer. It's probably an okay paint. The problem is you're spraying it out of, you know, an aerosol, you know, one of these aerosol cans, something like this, which when it comes to spraying, I don't feel like you have as much control, because what you do have is, one, this is your nozzle, which is effectively not exactly as good as actually spraying it out of an airbrush. You know, you just press down and it just sprays out whatever it sprays out. You've got more control with an airbrush, right? Because I mean, that way, you know, you can have like spluttering come out of these nozzles here, which then kind of leaves little blobs on your model. When the can gets low, it really can start to splutter when it gets really low. So you can use it and you can get away with it. But I suppose it's sort of like what level am you at? I mean, if you're sort of getting all professional and stuff, you want to be sort of using airbrushes and proper primers and stuff. But if you're just doing some basic modeling, aerosol cans or whatever color you want to use as a primer is absolutely fine. So I was just getting out the rubber tires, AK720. Nice color here. I think Ammo does a nice one themselves. Right, and I'm just going to get out a little palette just here. I'm going to pour a little bit of this just on here. Right, it's fairly thin already, but what we want to do is to be able to paint these all nice, no, brush strokes, or to get it nice and neat and perfect. I do like, again, Winsor & Newton's quite good for getting these little products like flow improver and retarder and glosses and stuff. Flow improver is basically going to give your paint what it says on the tin basic, and it's going to help it to flow, capillary action, all that good stuff. So we'll just put a little drop somewhere else on this palette, and I just want to drop of this out. I don't think there's much left in here. I'm going to have to get some more. Alright, so with this we don't really need a lot. We could probably just, let's get a paintbrush to actually mix this with first. Just an old paintbrush I've got on the side here. Just dip a little bit into our flow improver, and when we can just sort of mix this in, it should give us a bit of extra nice flow. It's probably a good idea to actually, maybe get a little bit, and then what we're going to do is right where the hubcap is, we're just going to just touch it and just see, how does it flow. You just touch the edge of it and it should flow in that sort of recess that goes around in a circle. And that's not looking too bad by just adding a little bit of the flow improver. It does seem to flow nicely. Yeah, that seems to be flowing nicely. I mean, if it doesn't straight away, I mean, you can always add maybe a bit of thinners. I wouldn't recommend sort of just keep adding flow improver though, because flow improver, if you add too much, it can sort of mess it up. You want just a little bit of it, that's all you need. And as you can see, just like with the pin wash, all I'm doing is I'm just touching the edge, and this then sort of kind of paints in the hard part, so to speak. So now I've sort of like pinned that around, I'm just touching that and it is just flowing around nicely. Now I've done that, I can probably just paint up to where we've just painted. Right, so we haven't had to like paint this now, carefully painting it all around the edges. Right, we just let the flow of the paint flow around that little hubcap there. So then we can easily paint this on now, as you can see. And then there we go, that's sort of nicely painted, if it focuses. There we go. And then basically we let that dry, and we'll just kind of keep building it up and building up. And this paint was already thin, so it's not really that much of a thick paint, so we haven't got to worry about brush strokes. If it was a thick paint, we'd sort of thin it down with some thinners and build it up that way. Better to always do 2 or 3 coats than do 1 thick coat, because that 1 thick coat is probably going to leave brush strokes and make it look unprofessional. Alright, so there's just some wheels and tyres. I'll finish them off camera. I'll just quickly check any questions we might have. Just a nice thank you there from Phil, no worries, and I'm glad to help. Right, so now we have this wing here. What we need now is some actual enamel finish. I've got some enamel odorless finish by Ammo themselves. I always oh, sorry, one sec. Okay, we've got a question here by Mr. Silent, sorry, is asking, would I add flow improver when painting large areas by brush? To be fair, if I'm ever doing a large area, I would probably spray it. But flow improvers it just helps the paint flow. If you remember, I was talking about brush strokes. Brush strokes is where the paint's too thick, it's drying really quickly, it's not really sort of settling down onto the model, so it leaves these kind of raised brush strokes and makes it look a bit naff. Flow improver is going to make your paint flow, so it is going to be able to, you know, it's going to be able to allow the paint to sort of go down and then flow onto the model, which helps remove brush strokes. So it is good to add like a drop of flow improver or even retarder as well, sort of if you're in hot countries. It's all about the paint being able to flow and not dry really quickly, which is why we thin it and stuff, because if it's too thick, it's not flowing, it's, you know, sort of drying quicker and it's drying in clumps and you get the brush stroke. So that's kind of what we're using that for. Okay, so let's just move along. We're getting back to the enamels. Enamel wash, enamel finish here is what we're going to use to clean this up. So it's quite cool really, because if we get a cotton wool bud, just dip it in our finish just here. And also, I mean, we don't want it to be too sort of soaked in finish, so I like to just roll on a kitchen paper towel just to make this cotton wool bud damp, not really sort of soaked in it. And what we can do here is, in the direction of flow, right, what we're going to do is just brush down in the direction of flow, right? And because this has had a bit of time to dry, right, this first pass, as you can see, all these little spots where I've done the pin wash, just so easy. I'm not even hardly pushing down any pressure. Here's a big spot here. I'm just brushing up and down with that, and it just cleans it up. Right, but because it's on the surface, we clean that up pretty nice, quick and easy. But the and basically what it's doing is it's rehydrating the paint, but the cotton wool bud can get to the top of the surface nice and easy, and wipe away these spots that are on the surface. But inside recessed panel lines, because it's recessed, this cotton wool bud isn't being able to sort of really get in there and clean out that paint. So we're basically cleaning up the paint that's on the surface first before we clean up the paint that's in the recesses. So what we end up with is, as you can see, that little brush across, we've just nicely cleaned up what's on the surface, leaving behind what's in the recesses and the recessed panel lines. And it's just bringing all that sort of detail work to the foreground. Right, and as you can see, it looks a lot nicer this side than this side. This side, you know, it's sort of, you know, all that detail's kind of hidden, it's faded in with all the rest, but over here it just brings it out nicely. Right, now I've just done one quick pass. We don't want to keep rubbing and rubbing and rubbing and rubbing at this until it's perfectly clean, right, because you will eventually start to work, sort of rehydrate what's in the recesses, and that will start to remove what's in the recesses then, and then you're sort of back to square one, which I suppose isn't bad really, because then you just reapply the pin wash and have another go. But you know, you don't want to be, you know, redoing your work. So what we want to do now is leave that to dry for a little bit now as well, because yeah, it's probably going to be hard to see on camera, but there is a few little dirty bits here and there, right? And what we want to do is because we're going with the direction of flow, right, it kind of makes these nice fine streaking effects that's going along here. I can see with the naked eye it's just little very sort of faint streaks that are going in the direction of flow, and I don't know if you can sort of see that on camera. You probably can't, but it's that nice faint bit of streaking which, you know, you get in close with a camera or something and you can sort of show off that work. I'll probably get the airbrush on this and just cut to air just to speed up this drying time, because we are live, and I'll just quickly check any questions. Adam is asking about doing a video on mud and rust effects. Actually, I mean, that is something I have been wanting to do. I have been wanting to sort of do a full step-by-step video on, say, going off and doing a burnt out tank which is all rusted up and burnt out and stuff, and I do want to sort of do dioramas as well. I mean, there's all sorts of videos I'd like to do, but it is something I would get round to at some point. William Corbin, welcome back again. Yeah, the wash we was using, if you just come in, I have been using the deep grey panel line wash by Ammo. That's 1602. Was a nice sort of, I wanted to go with something grey to complement natural metal finish, and it was nice and dark, but I didn't want to go with full-on black, as you can see just there. Really nice dark grey. So that's had a bit of time to dry. Now I'm going to be sticking with the same cotton wool bud because it's got a little bit of dirt still on there. This is where a bit of experience comes in. So I'm doing my second pass, and what I mean about a bit of experience is it comes to a point with this cotton wool bud where it gets so dirty that it's making a bit more of a mess than you want, but at the same time it's sort of like you want it sort of dirty enough that it actually kind of gives you these little lovely streaking effects, very mild, very light, right? But if you had a very clean, nice clean cotton wool bud, you just wipe it all away, whereas it being a little bit dirty, it sort of brings these little tiny streaks to the model. Right. Again, you probably can't see them, but it's very, very faint. It's like a little dirty streak just going down. So hopefully you can take my word for that if you can't see it on camera, but they're very, very slight. And that there now is done. It's kind of as simple and easy as that. I would recommend that maybe you sort of do this in sections, sort of chop it up. I mean, it's probably not a good idea to go all around the model with the pin wash and pin it all the way around, because this is the thing. It's sort of, you can smudge this now, because as I say, enamels take a long time to dry. This, if I was to touch this now, I could leave a fingerprint mark, right? Because it's enamels, it's going to take a bit of time to dry. So what you could do is potentially do a section of it, maybe, you know, okay, I can hold the back here of this tail section, so maybe you could do, you know, these bottom wings, the top wings, and then what I'd recommend is leave it maybe for like an hour, and you could potentially sort of do a quick little gloss on top just to stop any sort of smudging, and then turn around, hold this end, you know, do the and then start pin washing the towel section. It just stops you from like smudging it, really. I mean, if you don't want to do the whole streaking effects, I mean, you can just wipe it all off and just leave it in the recesses and you should be all right then. It's just when you do these little streaks. We could do a quick little streak as well while we're here, because really now I've just got to sort of go off camera and sort of do all what I've just shown you there. So let's pick out a colour for some streaking. Let's have a look. Something dirty but grey, maybe. Here we go. Give this one a go. I'm just going to give it a shake. I'm just kind of picking this out at the top of my head. Streaking grime for dark, which is 1201. It looks like a sort of a grey we can sort of use here. Phil's asking why I wear plastic gloves. Yeah, it is to basically stop fingerprints. I mean, you could end up touching anything with your hand, you know, I don't know, you've had a fish and chips and your hands are all greasy, you touch the model and that grease can do all sorts of funny business going on. Put a gloss coat on top, the grease is going to stop the gloss from actually spraying down there. I mean, when it comes to weathering, it just leaves all sort of nasty. So I do like to wear a glove. Good question actually from Conrad. Always getting hairs from the cotton buds. How do you prevent this in weathering? It is a bit of a pain, and it's kind of one of those things. It does help to have a good, you know, to buy some of the good quality cotton wool buds, although I kind of buy the cheap ones, but it is kind of one of these things you sort of, you know, you use the cotton wool buds, and then I do kind of go around and sort of like maybe get tweezers and pick out the cotton wool buds hairs, but it's sort of one of those, it's just one of those things. I mean, cotton wool buds are really good for this job. They're nice and cheap, and you can use quite a few cotton wool buds doing a big model. It's just one of those things you kind of got to deal with in a sense, but yeah, I'll just pick them off as I go around. And not only that, it's sort of like with cotton wool buds, you can sort of tell when the cotton wool bud's starting to get worn. You can see all the hairs start coming, fluffing up on it, and I just recommend, you know, throw away the cotton wool bud, get out another cotton wool bud. You know, it doesn't matter if you use about 20 cotton wool buds on a model, just, you know, use as many as you sort of need, really. So, okay, this is more of a grey green. I don't think I'm going to go for that one. Maybe let's just go for a standard streaking grime, a brown grimy colour. I'm just giving it a good shake. William Corbin, quick question here is recommendations on using oil paints for a wash. Do you know what? Oil paints, you can basically do exactly the same as what I'm doing here if you want. It's just enamels just seem to work a bit better. Oils tend to take really long to sort of dry, and you kind of got to be aware of like all this drying times, and you know what I'm on about with like smudging it and stuff. You've sort of got more of a problem when you start using oils like that. So I've got streaking grime here, which is 1203. I'm going to throw some streaks on this model. Now we don't have to be like massively, you know, neat with doing our streaks, but you know, maybe find a panel like I am here and just streak down, maybe even sort of on some flaps just here, you know, where you know it's going to be running sort of oil and stuff coming out of it. Right, and we've just done those quick nice little streaks there. Right, maybe another one up here. just like so. Just a nice little couple there, and then we sort of want to leave that to dry for a bit, but we are live, so I think I'll get out the old airbrush. Another question here by Adam Walker. He's got the Halifax bomber, and what sort of effects do I suggest? Actually, the first, if you go look back at the live sessions, we did actually work on a World War II bomber in there, and we sort of like went over sort of weathering black for, like, you know, spraying the black and weathering the black. You know, kind of go check that out. I mean, actually on my website there's loads and loads of videos on weathering for that. Now, where was I? That was it. Getting out that airbrush. I'm just cutting to air just to speed this up. It's probably better to leave it to just dry naturally, but I just want to speed things up for you guys. So there we go. That should hopefully be good enough. Now I'm just getting out a flat number 2 paintbrush just here, and then we also want to get out our enamel thinners again, because what we're doing is we're rehydrating the paint again. Getting out a kitchen paper towel as well. I'm just going to dip into here, right, and then I don't want it to be again flooded with paint, so I'm just going to dab a little bit on our kitchen paper towel. Right, if we flood it with paint and we brush down, it's just gonna just flow everywhere, and we don't want it to flow everywhere. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to streak down, right? So we're just going to streak this down and just do probably 1 or 2 passes, right? That first pass is potentially going to wipe quickly, rehydrate, and just streak it away, and it just feathers it in, fades it in. If we was to go off and just streak down again, we'd probably obliterate that. Right, we've got our other one just here. Again, 1 quick streak, 1 quick streak. Maybe we could get away with 2 on that one. Right, it's probably always best just to kind of go 1 or 2, because as I say, you could when you first start doing this technique, you'll probably just, you know, brush once, twice, 3 times, oh, and then you've brushed it all away and it's all gone, and you've got no streak left. What's best to do is, again, let this dry a bit. You want it to dry a bit so it doesn't rub away so quickly, and what you want to do is, you know, just keep on streaking at it after it's dried until you've got it to, you know, it feathered nicely the way you want it. I mean, actually, that first streak, hopefully as you can see, that first pass, it's actually not looking too bad. So I'm just going to cut to air and dry this off. There we go. And so that's hopefully dried enough. Let's make sure my paintbrush is clean. You always want to sort of keep on cleaning your paintbrush as well. If your paintbrush starts to get dirty, you're just going to be rubbing dirt around. You want to be sort of more precise and targeted. So keep your paintbrush clean, rehydrate it, not too much. Now we're sort of getting close to where we could pass across this and destroy it in one. So I'm just going to do a quick pass. There we go, that don't look too bad. This one just here, there we go. And there we go. Hopefully I'm sort of now liking that. It just gives those little streaks nicely in some targeted areas, just like so. So good to just leave that to dry. Now you could go a little bit more advanced if you wanted to. You could let that dry, come in, put a quick gloss coat on top, leave the gloss coat to dry, and then you could put another colour on top of that. So we've just used streaking grime. We could use another shade of brown, maybe a darker shade of brown, and streak on top of the streaks, and it just makes them look really sort of cool if you want to go that far. So that, I would say, is probably it for that. So I'm gonna probably do all this off camera now, doing all my pin washes and stuff. I'll probably leave it to sort of dry, and then yeah, do you know what, I think we could probably almost leave it at that. There's probably a last bit of spraying to do, which we'll probably look into next week. So let's just have a quick look at any questions or answers. Phil's asking about a subscription page. Yeah, let's just change the camera angle, because we're sort of done with the modeling. Yeah, subscription. I mean, you know, it's to do this as a full-time job. I mean, you know, money's got to come from somewhere. So on my website, there is a subscription page where, you know, if you like what you see, you can subscribe to Genessis Models and you get a username and password. And with that username and password, you can kind of go backstage and see the hundreds of hours and hours of step-by-step video builds, tutorials, rapid video builds, inbox reviews, you name it. There's just absolutely tons of it over there. You've got the forum as well, which is full of a bunch of great guys over there sharing all their wisdom as well, and sharing photos of their builds and their sort of photo builds, shall we say, and you can share your stuff there also, and it just sort of helps sort of, you know, keep the lights on, and for me to video all this for you guys and stuff. So you know, if you want to do that, it's totally and utterly up to you. But there is free stuff I do as well, just to keep everyone happy. And the forum's free as well if you want to just go over there anyway. We've got group builds there as well. So I'm hitting at the moment, we're doing a 1/72 scale group build. So build any 1/72 scale, post your pictures on the forum, and what is it, sometime in June or July, I pick out the best and send some trophies out. So if you want to go check that out, go check that out. And that looks like it for questions and answers tonight. As I say, next week this will be all weathered up, so we're probably going to be like maybe sort of gluing on, wheels, unmasking, talking about Mac codes. I do believe there is a aerial line on this, so we probably check out something called EZ line. It's like a long plastic rubbery string, and it just helps put like those aerial lines in there, which is quite cool. I think this one does. I can't remember. We'll check that out next week. Anyway, so that should be coming to an end. So you want to comment any suggestions of what's going to be the next live video build, because I've got a few builds in there. But yeah, apart from that, hopefully you've enjoyed our 21st live session here at Genessis Models. So until next time, my name is Bobby Waldron, and I'll catch you next time.